Hello and welcome back to my studio. It's July 2025 and it's World Watercolour Month, and I was really pleased to receive in the post a few days ago this amazing watercolour block you can see in the top of the screen here. St Cuthbert's Mill kindly sent me one of their wonderful cold press watercolour blocks for me to paint on to celebrate World Watercolour Month. And before I get into the studio vlog, just a quick disclaimer. This is not a paid promotion or a sponsorship. This is simply me showing you what I decided to paint to try out the paper on this lovely gift that was sent to me for World Watercolour Month. And I'm going to divide the paper up using washi tape into small sections to test it. And the paints that I'm going to use are indigo, sepia, burnt sienna and turquoise. I'll be using my 1.5 inch Mottler brush and my palette knife, and the block will be at an angle of about sort of 20 degrees tilt. So here you see I've divided the sheet up with washi tape, and I'm going to sort of wet the paper randomly all over and try and create some mini landscapes, abstract landscapes with this. This is a lovely warm-up exercise, and it's a great way of testing paper or paint combinations. You really get a chance to see how they work using really loose brush strokes. It's also a fantastic way to test out, as I'm doing here, the texture of the paper, to see if I get any dry brush effects, to see how beautifully the colours kind of diffuse, blend and disperse on the paper. You can see I'm slowly building up these mini landscapes using sort of these seemingly random brush strokes, but if you take a closer look you'll see that I'm trying to keep a sort of a landmass type suggestion across the bottom of each panel, and then using much lighter values of paint to create a sort of a sky across the top of each little panel. Then once I've got my basic abstract landscape studies painted, I can just work on just adding a few dashes of paint here and there, maybe lifting a bit out, and then, as you can see now, testing to see how this paper reacts to me sort of scraping through this rich paint with the tip of my palette knife, which is one of my favourite things to do and a really important part of my sort of signature personal style. You can see that these marks are sort of beginning to give a slightly more complex looks to these mini landscapes, but hopefully they'll really come into their own once the painting is dry and I remove the washi tape to sort of reveal how they look with clean white borders. And so as you can see, I've only used my large wash brush for this, and this has kept me really loose. It stopped me from fiddling, and I'm trying to keep the brushwork to a minimum. Just a few little finishing touches, trying not to get to the point where I overwork it, stepping back and having a little look, just seeing where I need a bit more tone. Here I need to sort of soften up, or I think I want to soften up that edge a little bit. And I've used my size 2 quill brush for that. So I'm going to have a cup of coffee and then come back and remove the tape, which for me is such an exciting part of this process. I've slowed this down a bit so you can enjoy this. Well, I'm enjoying it, so you have to indulge me, please. And just seeing this tape removed and seeing all these individual little white borders around each abstract landscape, I think is really fascinating, because then you get to see each one sort of in its own right, if you see what I mean, instead of it looking like a sort of a messy page. But most importantly, it's a great way to test out a new paper and to give you a really good idea of how it's going to react when you come to paint on it for maybe a more planned painting. So I'm just going to hold the block up and so you can get a look at the texture and a closer look at some of the way the paint has blended and the marks. The top one I really like. It sort of looks a bit like a sort of panorama with mountains. In fact, they all have that kind of like wide open space look. Even though they're very small, there's quite a lot going on in each painting. There's no mud, no sort of suspect marks. It's all just beautifully fresh. And that's one thing I absolutely love about all the St Cuthbert's Mill papers. And even though I've never tried a block, I assumed that when I tested this gift that it would work as beautifully as it has done. Now, I often do this, sort of at least once a week I'll do one of these exercises. And then what I tend to do is to cut them out. And I've got several sketchbooks, lots of different size sketchbooks that I put these studies into. And I make notes as well about colours, anything interesting that's happened in the study that I want to remember, maybe to take forward into a future painting. And I find this a really useful thing to do. I like colour swatching, but somehow playing with limited palettes like this in this way and then making notes about the results and putting them into sketchbooks for me is far more useful because then I can sort of directly take these effects into larger paintings, and I never need to forget how I created some of these marks because I can always make a little note about it. So, happy World Watercolour Week. Well, I've just had an hour or so of real fun playing around in the studio today and showing you some of my results. And I'm just going to continue working on this block. I mean, my real preference is hot press paper. That's my absolute favourite. But working on this cold press block was quite an eye-opener because I really enjoyed the way the paint behaved as I painted across the textured surface. And so I've got a feeling that I'm going to be doing much more experimentation with cold press paper in future. So I can heartily recommend Saunders Waterford cold pressed watercolour blocks. And as I said at the beginning, this isn't sponsored. I'm not being paid for this. I just decided that I'd share my experiments on this paper with you here on the channel. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you'll have a go at maybe some experiments for World Watercolour Month. And if you found this interesting or helpful, then please click on the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber here with us, then why not consider subscribing? It's free to do, and it really does help us with our reach here on YouTube. And thank you so much to everybody that supports us on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. And of course, thanks so much to St Cuthbert's Mill for sending me this beautiful paper to try. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.